Hello, hi everybody. Uh, Welcome to the webinar. I'm really happy to be starting this webinar with Professor Blaženka Divjak. But let me first just briefly introduce myself and this webinar series. So my name is Ivica Botički. I'm a professor at the University of Zagreb, School of Electrical Engineering and Computing. But here I act as the chair of the APSCE Tamil special interest group. So it's a special interest group that deals with technology and mobility of learning experiences as part of APSCE society. So we do organize periodically webinars, and then it's my real honor to welcome Professor Blaženka Divjak for this webinar today. Let me just briefly introduce Blaženka. She's a really well-known professor in Croatia who has participated in so many things. It's really hard to actually number all the things, but probably the most nationally important is that she was the Minister of Science. But that's only one part of her amazing career and experience. And I could easily say that Blaženka is among the top people in education and science in Croatia. Her work is truly amazing in terms of publications, social engagement, and actually I have been working with Blaženka a bit, and she's a really amazing person to work with. So professionally, I'm really happy to be able to introduce Blaženka today. She will, of course, perhaps give a little bit more details on all of this, but I will just use this opportunity to also talk just a little bit about the ICC conference, which is also organized by APSCE. So don't forget that we have this amazing conference later this year. Hopefully you made some submissions because the conference is from 1st of December until the 5th of December in Chennai in India. If you haven't, no worries. There are workshops to be announced soon. So that would be amazing. Please join us. And I really hope we have a lot of fun together at this conference. So Blaženka will start now and take over, and her topic for today will be revolving around learning analytics. Blaženka will, of course, give a little bit more details. So to cut this short, so Blaženka, the floor is yours.
So thank you so very much, Ivica, for introduction, and also for society to inviting me for this webinar. And just to say at the beginning that I visited several countries in Asia last year, and when I was in Singapore and then in Japan, and talked to the colleagues there, and everybody said, "Oh, but probably you are, do you know the Professor Ivica Botički?" And I said, "Yeah, I know him, but not very well." So I used this opportunity to actually that we started some cooperation between our two groups, because as I said, I've been we are at the same university but different faculties, and sometimes it is really rewarding if you have some catalyzer from outside to steer a little bit and then to promote cooperation even within the same country, same university. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And let me now see, I don't know if you see my slides right now. If it's
so
okay.
at this point, I can see the holding slides.
Okay, because I'm not sure, maybe it's not a holding slide. Let me see. Is this the first page of my?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
That's it.
Great. So thank you so very much for helping me here. So here, as it was said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about not just learning analytics and learning design, but also how we can use learning analytics and learning design in this decision making in higher education, because you heard, besides my career in science and higher education, I took several positions during my rather long career, I would say. Being minister, being vice rector before that for 4 years. So I was professionally, but also in this research part related and interested in decision making as well. But my background, my PhD is in mathematics, so all this stuff around learning analytics, it's again close to my heart. And as you can hear, it is a kind of area that sometimes we have these fields very, very far away, or they are not talking to each other. But I think it is very important that we talk to each other, not just within the university, within one country, but even broader. Because the challenges that we have nowadays in not just in education, but in society, for example, based on the very rapid development of AI, actually, it calls for a much broader cooperation and thinking. So bringing different fields together and then try to find some solutions and common ground. At the beginning of my talk, I'm going to introduce a little bit of University of Zagreb, my faculty and the laboratory, very briefly. What do we do? Then I continue with our current research and projects in learning analytics and learning design, but also I would like to always see how we can connect that to the decision making. How can research be used more for decision making, primarily in higher education and education in general? So this is the plan. And as you know, the University of Zagreb is in Croatia. It is the oldest university and the biggest university in Croatia. Maybe not so big if you take some Asian standards, but still rather big, around 70,000 students. And I'm working at a faculty of organization in informatics. So I'm a mathematician, but also I'm pretty much interdisciplinary in my approach to the fields, as I mentioned before. And also we have our laboratory for learning analytics, so learning analytics lab at the faculty. And again, we are dealing with learning analytics, academic analytics, learning design, AI in education, and evidence-based decision making when we put all these parts together. And speaking about decision making, it was before my career as a minister. Yeah, it was we had this project, High Decision. It was the project. It was funded by Croatian Science Foundation, and what we tried to do at that time, try to figure out how we can introduce some knowledge and some frameworks that we know from mostly from the business arena to the education and research. And so we analyze the cycle of strategic decision making. So you can see here 4 points in decision making, and try to see how we can solve some of the issues that we have at that time in higher education. At that time, it was introduction of open and distance learning. But of course, today we have much more challenges. But I think that, again, it's still valid to take a look at all these stages. So first, that we should be aware of the problem that we would like to solve if we have a problem. And then to try to find design methodology for decision making, and decision making itself should be done. And then to follow the implementation of our strategic decision and monitor all along this implementation, and finally have an evaluation of strategic decision and implementation. It is a rather simple naming cycle, but it should be used, because nowadays we are talking about closing the loop. So it means that we should introduce something, follow, and then have kind of a research-based evidence how we are working. But it is a rather old idea, of course, this kind of a cycle. But in the meantime, after this period, and as I said, at 2017, I became a minister, and so I moved from the research, but I was in charge of the research and education in Croatia, but also have opportunity for half a year chairing the European Council of Ministers of Education and Research, and yeah, and it was during the pandemic. And why is that important? Because suddenly decision making is not just decision making related to the cycle that I showed you seconds before, but we should consider in which actually domain we are making decisions, because usually we have decisions like a clear cause and effect relationship, like making when we are professionals like teachers and researchers, and so we, for example, have to design a course, or much more, a little bit complicated, more like when we introduce new study program, and then after that, of course, it required expert analysis. Then, if you have a lot of effects coming from the outside, like nowadays when we have this rapid development of AI, and we should restructure education, not not just very fast, but having a lot of unknowns that we don't know. So then we call it complex domain, but during the pandemic it was chaotic. So it was different type of decision making. So no clear cause and effect relationship, and urgent actions required that were required to establish order. But this idea of this kind of a framework, it is a so-called Snowden framework. It's called also Kuhn-Lewin framework, coming from the Welsh word that signifies the multiple factors in our environment and our experience that influence us in ways we can never understand. So that is the kind of a meaning of the word. But as you can see here, it is again the same composition, the same division of decision-making domains into four domains, and it is very important to understand what we are, where we are working, and in which domain we are making decisions. So at a COVID time, as a minister, for me it was very important, not just for me but for the society, to make fast decision, even though unknowns we had at the time that we were not aware of. It was very fast movement, so very difficult to detect cause-effect relationship, and often we act on intuition. So we first idea was to act to save lives, and then to make sense out of it, and then to respond, and hopefully after that to move to the complex domain. So complex domain means that we know a little bit more about virus, we have a vaccination and so on, so we can concentrate more on the issues that are directly related to the education. And sometimes we are just when people are making decision, even in higher education, just forget about the domain where we are making decision. And of course, we should, whenever we have analysis, and analysis are important and data are important in all domains, but as I said, in chaotic domain, it wasn't very feasible to have analysis and data in a short period where we should respond fast. But then it is trust was very important. But trust was not just important it's not just important in chaotic domain, but in all the other domains, so that our decisions can be trusted. But how we can do it. So we should have a lot of analysis and knowledge and expert knowledge to put forward and to help not just the high level of decision makers like ministers or presidents of universities, rectors, vice rectors, deans, and so on, but also for teachers and students. And in that respect, we should move on. And you can see here that two current projects, my lab, our laboratory, learning analytics laboratory, now are working on, are related to trustworthy. So trustworthy learning analytics and artificial intelligence for sound learning design. So we try to combine. You can see here, there's project financed by Croatian Science Foundation, 4-year project, and then another one financed by European Union in innovating learning design in higher education. So I'll try to illustrate what we've been working on in these two projects and connect that to the decision-making part. I hope that I can do it. But if you have any questions, just use Q&A here, and later I will answer the questions. So the first project, as I said, it is funded by Croatian Science Foundation. And you can see here that what we would like to do is use learning analytics to inform learning design, but also innovating teaching and learning methods and e-assessment, but also to detect and analyze learning patterns. When we applied for the project, this Gen AI boom was not so evident. But we, I think, really predicted quite well that we should analyze learning patterns and how teachers are designing teaching and learning process, and how students actually learn. And then, of course, there are some other objectives. Very important part around framework for trustworthy learning analytics and algorithms we are using. So it's very important part. Then also how we can use all these data coming from learning analytics for decision making as well. So you can see the team. So we have team from our faculty and university, but also you can see people from Australia, Monash University, but also some other European universities. And then another project, it is much more practical project, innovating learning design in higher education. We are the coordinators of the project, but we also have Open University London, University of Oulu and Gateway University on board for this project. And idea is to develop further learning design tool to help teachers to actually take into consideration a lot of analysis and requirements, and to design in advance courses, but also the whole curricula. And so we have invested quite a lot of time and energy, and also this broad cooperation to develop the not just the model, but also the tool. The tool, it is free to use, and I'm going to show it a little bit later. But we also prepare resources for open resources that we can use for learning design in the AI era. So that's another project. So you can see the partners here as well. And then, let me just see, okay. You can see here the list of the recent publications from our lab. So around the pedagogy, but also prediction of student results. And we are, of course, concerned also with mathematics in education, because several of us, we are mathematicians. And then, yes, I said that I'm going to explain a little bit around this learning design concept. So learning design concept that we advocate, it is built around learning outcomes. So that we recognize what the learning outcomes are, and then try to take a look at how to make it much more this process of teaching and learning learner-centered, that we take into consideration student workload, also alignment between learning outcomes and other parts of the design, teaching and learning activities, incorporate feedback, but also to think about digital pedagogy, design analytics, to use analytics and collaboration in a designing phase, not just wait for students to give us feedback, because usually it is too late, because we would like to prepare as much as we can in advance, and then student feedback is kind of a second phase of analysis. Not that we are just giving everything to students and experiment with students. And then nowadays we are happy that after just a few years we have in the tool, we opened the tool, we have more than 2,500 users and coming from more than 40 countries around the globe. Let me just see, maybe I can at this point show a little bit around it. Okay, so if you would like to try it, and I hope that you would like, just take a look at the address. Is very easy to remember, learning-design.eu. And as I said, it's free to use, so you can use it without any restrictions, just register. And then I can show you how it works. So for example, I just take this one. Okay, I have to log in. Okay, so I take this one of the courses I've been working on together with other colleagues. You can see here that it's really collaborative because there are many of us working on this course together. And then how we work very intuitively. So you just describe the course at the beginning, then put the language, keywords, target groups, educational level, and so on, and then list learning outcomes. So these are the learning outcomes that were recognized in a previous part of designing. And you can see here that we have several of them, and also that the learning outcomes have these numbers here. So we have weighted learning outcomes. So we are aware that not all the learning outcomes that we are putting in front of our students have the same weight, have the same importance. So we try to figure out how to actually prioritize the learning outcomes. So we also use some techniques like multi-criteria decision making. It's then a little bit complex part when we need more precise prioritization, but also we use some simpler techniques and methods to detect what is the weight of a particular learning outcome. And of course, you can see here that we have 100%, so the sum is 100. And then based on that, we can follow the planning. So the planning means that we have topics, that we have units, and that we have teaching and learning activities. So you always have to take a look at the learning outcomes and plan learning outcomes here. So this topic is related to the 3 learning outcomes you can see here, and also the percentage of covering this learning outcome. And then when you, for example, plan some activity, you can see it is one unit, and within this unit, the first activity is introduction to the unit and authentic learning scenario. So you can follow the route here and you can analyze, first of all, of course, put a little bit description in it, then use some learning type. It is a simple one, it's acquisition. Then again to connect, to align this activity with the learning outcomes. So you can see the learning outcomes for this whole topic, you just choose out of it, and some other parts as well, like collaboration, feedback. You can click here that students will get, I don't know, automated feedback or something like that. So this is how you build here, but what is really important that in parallel, you have analysis. So analysis part means not just the workload, which is very important for students, that we are in line with the workload, but also what kind of and type of activities we have, what type of learning outcomes we are using, what kind of teaching and learning activities, and of course, when you have assessment should be aligned valid. So validity means that it is aligned with the learning outcomes. So you can check all these graphs here, there are more of them, and even during the process of designing, you can change. So it doesn't mean that you should wait for delivery. And of course, final check on a constructive alignment, where you can see that all these learning outcomes are covered, and you can see in this heat map in which topic the certain particular learning outcome has been covered. And of course, summative and formative assessment for all of them. Yes, sometimes it's too narrow, so it is, or there are too many details, so it's good to have this kind of a, picture of your design, that you can see in this graph how actually the whole course looks like. Yeah, and at the end, it is AI usage, how we use AI, and why I show that. Because yes, we have opportunity to use AI assistant. So we have API here related and linked to the LLM, and of course feed it by definitions and all sorts of instructions. So it's not just direct route, but a lot of fine tuning. And you can use it, for example, here to generate learning outcomes. If you have description, you can add some of the stuff you would like to add or replace, or for example, that you have learning outcomes that are on a certain level, and you can apply it. And when you get it, okay, you can say, okay, it's mostly application. So the third level in Bloom taxonomy. And after that, you can get assistance from AI assistant, and you can see here what you got. And sometimes you can really have very nice ideas in this interaction between teachers and AI assistant here. And you can select if you would like to apply some of this or not. Okay, and then to give some of the, let's say, rating for that. Okay, this is about the tool. And the reason I showed very briefly the tool, it is because I think it's an idea behind it, that we talk about validity of assessment, that we have design analytics, but also how to use some kind of an AI assistant for this time for teachers. Now I'm going back to the presentation. Let me just see it. I think that I have it here. I hope that you have my screen back, PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I think that you can see it. Yes, as I showed you, this part is pretty easy to follow, and we also have this scaffolding from BDP tool to the LMS, so learning management system. But these are theoretically not so interesting here. And yes, and so we try to build this tool having in mind that we have teachers that are experts, but not all of them are experts. So they need some assistance. That's the first. And second, that it is good to have a kind of a bouncing ideas with somebody. Sometimes these are peers and colleagues, but sometimes they can be AI assistant. And then building this part, we also try to see how teachers are making decisions. So how AI assistant to support teachers in designing. And what we have, so we describe this process, and the full paper is going to be presented at Artificial Intelligence in Education conference this year in Palermo in 2 months. It's the second half of July, but I'll just give you a few hints from it, not so much from the architecture part, but what we get as a feedback from teachers. So what we would like to see is that teacher is conductor. So technology is supporting, but teacher is decision maker, conductor. Then we can see that, and what we got from as a feedback, that users appreciated the assistance, but also that the educators were more critical about this. Leda is the name of the assistant. Outputs at higher level. So they appreciate more. Let us help in writing and filling in the boxes on the lower level when they fill in the teaching and learning activities descriptions. But on a higher level, idea of the course, learning outcomes, main topic, they are not so happy to rely on technology. And I'm happy with educators about it. So I think this is exactly the idea, to keep our decision-making role, that we are conductors, but that we can use the help from the technology as much as we can. And of course, it means that you should have educators that are AI literate, but also that have considerable knowledge about pedagogy itself. So I think it's really important to remember that in the level of decision making by teachers. And then it is also important how to make interpretation. And we also work in that, because to introduce some new stuff like a flipped classroom in your teaching and learning, it is something that should be carefully planned. So it means that you should know where to use technology, how to make alignment, what kind of assessment task we can implement. So we research a little bit deeper. For example, in this part, you can see the references here if you are much more interested in this. And then, of course, our application goes further to an automatic generation of e-exams, for example, because if you have a nice description in a design, what type of the task you need, and all these tasks are related to the learning outcomes, and you know if it is what kind of a feedback you are planning, then especially if you have a bigger group of students, this automatic generation of e-exam is very powerful, but at the same time it's traceable. So you can trace the digital footprints of students, and also you can analyze it later. So I think that again, this kind of first part, learning design, should be used not just to I don't know, to persuade the deans or accreditation bodies that our designs are on the paper fine, but also to make improvements in your delivery orchestration. So this is, I think, important, and especially nowadays, it is important for ensuring assessment validity, to use learning analytics to ensure assessment validity. And this assessment validity, if would like to put it in simple words, we would say that all the tasks should be from assessment should be related back and traced back to the learning outcomes. But it's easier to say than to do it. And it depends in which phase of your planning cycle you are. And again, you can see this Deming cycle. So it is do, check, plan, act, plan, do, check, check, act. And you can see that in the different parts of this planning and decision-making cycle, you can use different learning analytics and also, of course, other techniques to provide a basis for evidence-based decision-making. And again, you can read a little bit more technical details around it in this British Journal of Education Technology paper that I listed here. But again, I would like to emphasize that we should have really reliable data and that we should think about biases in data and how to make these learning analytics much more trustworthy. And then going back to the predictions, when you have a kind of an environment where you're sure that you have aligned well this learning design is sound, then it is really justifiable then to trust in learning analytics coming from the learning environments. Otherwise, if you have something that is not well prepared, then it is like working with a research methodology that is not appropriate and sound if you're just working in some random learning environment. So in this, I would say, pretty well designed learning environment, we also try to see what are the good predictors for student results to have again kind of a feedback to decision making, again to the designing process. And you can see here that what we try to see it is a progress of our students through the whole course. And we were happy to when we saw that some students that were lagging behind at the beginning actually can enhance, but not so happy to see that sometimes students without stamina to keep on going until the end with the same energy. And then we see that the most powerful prediction for the results predictor is the most powerful predictor for the summative examination is not participating in lectures like being present, but to participate in formative assessment. And it is even not so important if the results in formative assessments are, very good, but to be persistent, to participate, and to keep going. So to have this kind of a hands-on all the time on the course material and collaboration. And I think it is very important because now when students are trying to, sometimes to even cheat with using AI technology, and it is very important finding that for them and to development of their cognitive apparatus is very important that they are engaged all the time with other students, with learning material, and to be present in all these hands-on activities. Of course, there are some other parts that we can discuss. For example, what kind of a material to prepare, what kind of a material better students or more successful students are happy with. For example, that videos are not so important for the best performing students that are much more, I would like to be engaged with the real examples and problem solving. And that's actually successful part. And then we try to see the impact of learning design of the mastery of learning outcomes in higher education. So we work together with a group, the university in Australia, the University of South Australia, and see how we can actually improve decision making on a curricular level in a way to see what is the role of learning design in ensuring mastery of learning outcomes, but also what groups of learners can be identified based on the mastery of learning outcomes. And I'm not going to, this is the paper that we presented this year at the LUC conference in Dublin, but I'm not going to go into the details. But what was really important to see that if you build a kind of a map and the graph, for example, ENA or SNA analysis, you can detect the kind of essential points, central learning outcomes. And it is important for the curriculum study program level as well, because then you can see how to navigate the students throughout the study program. And especially today, when we have this a rather strong, sometimes inclination of students to use AI to be sure that these central learning outcomes should be checked much more thoroughly, and to prevent them to have this cognitive offload, taking from their, not to develop their own capacities and skills, but just to use the support from AI, which on the long run is not something that we should encourage. And especially because we should encourage development of concepts, not so much on routine tasks anymore, but to work to understand the full concepts. So I think that it is also some results that should be applied much broadly, especially at a university level, but also it should be taken into consideration when we are thinking about the future of education and the influence of AI in education itself. Okay, I'm going to skip that. Yes, because it is very difficult to not to and it is not it's not feasible that we just put aside how AI is affecting the education as such. So we try to also to keep the record about it, but also try to be responsive. Not to say you are not allowed to use AI in, for example, in mathematics, but there are tasks we would like to advise you to use it, and the task that we are it's not advisable, so it's not recommended. So and we try to follow what's going on, for example, in one problem solving task throughout the 3 years. So you can see here that the first year, so 2021-22, it was a problem-solving task in mathematics without GenAI. Then we introduce and we advise them how to use it in year after that, in academic year after that, and then is the second year of use of AI for solving problem solving in mathematics 2023. And you can see on these results that this first year, of course, some people would expect that the students would be much better when they said, okay, you can use and you have to use Gen AI to help you to solve the problems, that students would have better results. Actually, it was not like that. So the first year, the results were not so good as a year before when students didn't use AI. But we are aware that this is disruptive introduction of Gen AI have this distressing impact on students' results. And after that, the situation stabilized and Gen AI was more beneficial once students were already more skilled how to use it. And it is very important when making the decision of introducing AI, how to do it, not to give students this opportunity just to have this cognitive offloading, but to dive deeper into the concepts and try to find situation when they can use it without problems, and where they should be suspicious about it. It has much broader implication, because nowadays we can see that even there are some predictions that white-collar jobs are going to decline in the next period, but that the understanding of the concepts are very useful. So probably not direct coding so much, but understanding of the concepts. And this is actually what we try to see at the university level, to development of more concepts, conceptual understanding and the context understanding. Okay, I have a little bit more about it here, how we use data to analyze, for example, tracking how teachers are using the tools like a learning design tool. So we cover this as well. But I think that it's better for me to give you opportunity to ask questions and just, okay. You can read it from the reading list a little bit more about how learning design and what are the pattern analysis giving us from the learning design. And I'm proceeding to the conclusion. So what we would like what I would like to give you as a message to take away, that we also we as a researchers have also obligation to talk to practice. It's not into practitioners and then back to take problems from the practice and then go to research. Second, to close the loop. So it's not just to get something out of research, have a publication, but also to check on it, to introduce it to decision-making level, and also to use our research findings as a basis for own decision-making. Because there are a lot of missing opportunities to implement insights and tools. A lot of. For example, even in our own institutions, we can see that if we have some research findings, it's very difficult to persuade decision makers to rely on that. So this trustworthy is really the concept that we should think about it. Because decision makers also should be motivated to ask for research insights, but also to provide funding for the further research. And you can, if you paid attention at the beginning on this illustration on the right, this illustration on the right here, at the beginning, probably you noticed that had less arrows than this one here. And this is very important, not to miss some of these links here for inform decision-making by research and vice versa, to ask for research when we should make the decisions. And especially because the decision-making today is complex. You remember this Snowden Kuhn-Levin framework? It's complex. At least we have double challenge coming from requirements of very fast changing society due to AI introduction. Then the job market, also it's unknown for the majority of us, and the destiny of students depend on that. But also we have this kind of a push to not just to introduce technology, but to understand the ethical use of technology and what we would like as a societies to go for it. So the dignity of humans, our position towards the technology and the development and so on. And then finally, yes, as I said at the beginning, there are a lot of global challenges today, and these global challenges actually call for broader cooperation. So I'm really happy that I have opportunity to talk to you today, and I hope for questions in Q&A.
Thank you very much, Blaženka, for a very stimulating talk. I really love the last part, the call for global cooperation. As you said, like even local cooperation is sometimes missing, not in a bad way. sometimes it just doesn't happen for one reason or another. And then joining forces at the global level would be amazing. I hope this is a small step towards that, and then we would be able to build more links and connections globally. Before just before calling for the questions from the audience, Blaženka, I would just like to ask two brief questions. So, from your experience, when you look at the transformative potential of AI, from your experience as a minister and someone who was, well, running the education system, so to speak, how would you rate, or what would be your advice to the teachers and stakeholders? What are the ways that the teachers should transform or embrace the new technology? I ask that because it's not easy, even for us who are on the technology side. It's challenging for me personally, keeping track of all the changes and the opportunities. But how about the teachers who are not so well versed in technology? What is the strategy? How do they help themselves and help the students? And I will just ask the second question immediately, which is probably related, and this is more technology oriented, related to the black box nature of the AI. How does that relate to learning analytics? Because it seems to me that those black box systems are uh, well, less analytically open. How do we, how do we build the links between learning analytics and Gen AI, which will probably dominate the market and the landscape for a while?
Yeah. Thank you, Eve. It's two excellent questions. I'll try to be brief. First of all, yes, whenever we have something new, it is in a human nature to be afraid. So, and the best answer is to learn about it. So just I'm going back to the this COVID time. So when we were afraid at the beginning, because we don't know anything about the virus, how to respond, and so on. So it is very similar here. So we have to learn as much as we can. So I think that the number one advice for the teachers, but also for the governments, for universities, to organize as many workshops, discussions, e-courses, MOOCs, whatever, that people can learn. So because if we are afraid, we can go in two ways. First, that we ignore it, and that is not, we cannot do it because students are not going to ignore it. And then second, that you just accept what it is on the plate without thinking. And then going back to your second question about black box, and most people are not aware that even those that designed the LLMs are not sure how these LLMs are now giving answers. And I'm much more so nowadays, and people are just identifying AI with Gen AI, but that's not what we can only use and think about it. So we should think about how we can use the certain algorithms, even GoFi, so good old-fashioned rule-based, technology to understand what we have. And probably you see our results that we use in our analysis. We try to use as many machine learning approaches like I don't know, random forest or support vector machine or neural networks that we can at least explain. And we are very much aware of first of all, that the most challenging stuff is to prepare the data, to see that you have competing interests there, because in one way you should give opportunity for learners to opt out. But then if you have a lot of minority students opting out, then your data are not complete. So then you are in a problem. So there are competing interests. So first of all, to prepare data, and second, to have a very insightful experts to make interpretation based on that. And now you can see why it is really challenging for the most decision makers, especially on the political levels, to understand what they have on the plate.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. The discussion is ongoing. Let me just refer to one of the questions from the Q&A. I will probably read the name incorrectly, but Schata Al Hassan Vnech. Sorry for my amazingly wrong pronunciation. So the question is, what are the effective strategies institutions can use to integrate learning analytics into the curriculum design and pedagogical practices? I would imagine, I mean, that amazingly, but many institutions haven't started considering learning analytics. I know some from my experience. So what would be your advice in that way?
Yeah, it is another really very important question, because to have a system of learning analytics, so systematically introduce learning analytics as a system in institution, is different than just to have research groups that are working and using something. So it is very, even though this field it has been developed for 15 years or more, still we have a lot of institutions that are not using at all. But also we have research, very strong research groups in some institutions that are not able to penetrate into the full landscape at a university. So I would say that there are several enablers that we should take into consideration. First of all, that we have a really good practices to show. If we don't have a good practices to show, just to list a nice publication in Q1 journals are not going to persuade anybody. So that's the first. Second, to have really to find somebody on a leadership level that you can talk to. That's the second. And then the third, it is the broader, let's say, to disseminate as fast as you can to the colleagues that why it is helpful. Then you can start. So at least three enablers are needed for that. And yeah, and which one is the most hard to achieve at different institutions? Yeah, we should judge for ourselves at our own institutions and systems.
Yeah, thanks, Blashenka. It's amazing how the field of learning analytics and generally technology and education actually is still developing. There are so many opportunities for us, both on a research level, I would say even more on a institution levels for us to leverage. And this is why it's good to work in this field. There are so many things we can engage with. Since there aren't many questions in the Q&A box, I will just briefly ask the audience if there are any questions that could be asked live. There is one more from Ishika. No, it's Ishika. I hope I read it well. So there's a lot of LD tools, but school teachers lack time and skill to use these. How can we support the learning specific design in the era of Gen AI?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, actually, we recommend, of course, our own tool. It is learning-design.eu, so BDP tool, Balanced Design Planning, and the good, of course, it's free to use. Just to be that you know that there is no fee to use it, so you can open it, you can use it, and what we tried to do, it is to have a lot of explanation and navigation within the tool. So if you have a problem, and we know that still there are many teachers that are struggling with even listing learning outcomes to help you with, but also to learn. When you think about the learning type, what kind of a learning type I have here, that you immediately have not just definition, but also examples. So it is important, and we introduce this Gen AI to help teachers in the tool. but not to fill the boxes without teachers and designers have a chance to not just to read it, but to make informed decisions. And what is also important, this is the second part, it is not just that a few teachers are using the tool, but again, I'm going to the first question posed by Shata, that it is a kind of a on the study program level, on institution level, something that not just to use on a few courses, but also to integrate it and use it at the level of study program. I didn't show that because it wasn't time in this, but it is even more important that you have something coherent and to see how these are related. And when you would like to introduce something very fast, that to see the effects of the fast change on the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
I would agree. I think the importance of professional development as well is probably something that we should engage with much more. Even us working in research, there should be more extension towards that part as well. Since we ran over the time a bit, so we're actually 4 minutes after 10, I would slowly wrap up this session. I would like to thank you, Blaženka, for a great talk, a very stimulative session with a lot of ideas open, and hopefully, as I said before, this opens chances for global connections and global projects even. Let me just briefly restate what I said before. Please submit your papers for the ICC conference. Again, this has been part of APSCE webinar series related to Tamil learning mobility special interest group. And it was a pleasure having you here, Blaženka, and also thank you very much for everyone joining this session. It was really great to have you here today. Hopefully, we will have many more seminars, and we are really looking forward to seeing you again at our APSCE webinar series. Thank you very much, Blaženka. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Ivica, and all of you that are coming to share with us today.